Good morning, beautiful people.
Good morning. Cheers.
Ashley and I were sitting here and we were just having a chat, and we decided that it should probably be recorded. I had asked her, I had said that in my findings, I found that in dealing with trauma and complex PTSD, that if someone has suffered a childhood trauma, um, the possibility of getting lots of 3 or 4 letter diagnoses for behaviors: ADD, ADHD, bipolar, um, borderline personality disorder,
OCD for those who like things in threes.
OCD. So, in my findings, I've found that trauma is the root for a lot of people. Childhood trauma is the root cause of those behaviors, and they're myself. I was medicated, my whole life for the behaviors, but the behaviors were from trauma, and I wasn't addressing the trauma. None of the trauma was coming into place. So I said to Ashley, I said, how can we go about, letting people know that if they suffer childhood trauma and, they're being diagnosed or medicated or treated for these other behaviors, they're just behaviors caused by us trying to keep ourselves safe through our trauma. And and then she went on to talk to me about a realm that I've touched on, know about, but don't know anything about. And this is where I kind of went, hang on, we need to get this recorded. So now I'm going to say to Ashley, please go back to what you were explaining to me.
Yeah. And thanks for doing this. So here's the thing. So there's a couple of problems that comes up here. One is that a lot of people don't want to do the research into the diagnoses because it can lead to all these rabbit holes. And, there is a medical conspiracy such thing going on. There's this triad of big farm, big pharma, and big agro that are really changing who the human is today, and that's causing a lot of issues and trauma in the body as well that would normally equip us to be able to handle stresses that would come. But there's also a lot of things coming up in childhood trauma, like being discussed yesterday when it came to birthing trauma. That's where instantly from birth you're not getting that touch, that love. And when we're talking about the chakra system, a lot of these childhood traumas up until the age of 20 are held in the lower 2 chakras, which is really the foundation of everything. And that's why getting the chakras into balances the hormones, allows our body to grow and change the way it needs to in order to adapt to new circumstances and fulfill those needs that weren't as a child.
Okay, so first question.
Yes.
What are the chakras?
So the chakras are energy centers in the body, but they can also be used as a kind of a doctrine. It can be used to categorize and organize different things, different symptoms, and different healing modalities to align with each one of the chakras that holds different energies, or different energies would block
So
it.
each chakra is a systematic area.
Yes.
So if you were looking at it, you could have symptoms of this or symptoms of this, and they would be related to this chakra. Similar in how Ayurvedic goes, if you've got symptoms of this or symptoms of this, it's to this organ. Or TCM goes symptoms of this to this organ.
Absolutely. So, and it ties into Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine. This doctrine was used across the board along many. It's one of the things, like when you're looking into different religions and you take away that love is really the answer. It's like that's the thing that was consistent through all of them. When it comes to the doctrine, some of the practices that I use and teach are the ones that were consistent through all of them. And this chakra system is one of them that shows up over and over and over again.
Okay. And they're energy points within the body.
Meridians and, energy channels. They're also considered wheels. And so energies can get blocked when there's a disruption. And when you're experiencing something like a Kundalini awakening, or a spiritual awakening, sometimes these energies will, if we're resisting, can trigger us in certain areas. Or like the book Body Keeps the Score, it will show up in different areas. And a lot of the reasons why people with childhood trauma will put on excess weight, or have a hard time losing weight, or be that skinny fat where they have a hard time releasing the toxins, or where they need hip replacements and knee replacements, or things wrong with their feet, things wrong with their ankles. This is all a sign that there was childhood trauma. But what's great about this doctrine and working with the chakra system is that you can both identify where the symptoms are and what the solutions are, because there are a lot of solutions. Like essential oils can be categorized through the chakras. Different yoga techniques would be for different chakras, different foods, different medicines, different herbs,
different
can all be
energies in,
aligned.
different energies out.
Music,
Yoga techniques,
yes.
Energies out. Martial arts, energies
Yes.
out. Food, nutrition, energies in.
The duality.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, and you said something in there that you went, that's why some people will, get really fat. Some people will get skinny. Some people will struggle with. And in the areas I've gone in there, I go, well, what I've noticed is that if people suffer a childhood trauma, they they will immediately modify their avatar. And some of the avatars become, what the fuck can you do to me? I'm already doing it. Fuck you. And some of the avatars become, you can't see me. You can't see me, and I'm going to make sure I disappear.
But
And
both
others become,
yeah,
I'm going to become
take a lot
ugly
of room
and not looked at. I don't want people to look at me, and if they do, they're going to go ooh and look away. I don't want the attention. And that's kind of where I put that, as opposed to, oh, it's an energy thing of blockage and sitting. So I've put it into a conscious, subconscious, conscious mental decision. We don't know we've made the decision, but it is a conscious decision, right? In my case, I created an avatar that everybody named Mayhem, and I can specifically go to episodes. An episode where we were in a town, we'd been invited to a party. The party was going on, people are getting drunk, and then the aggressive people look at the long-haired band and they kind of decide, well, hey, let's get aggressive. And they would come in, and it always starts with a little something. And Mayhem was the guy that, one of them, the guy came over and started to spout something, and Mayhem just picked up the fly swatter and looked at him and pretended to lick the fly swatter and smiled. And Buddy looked at me and was like, yeah, as if you did. Before he got the words out, I licked the fly swatter and handed it to him to have a lick. You want to go crazy? Let's go crazy, motherfucker. Right? I created that character.
Yeah. So here's the thing about this, and it is quite common. That's how you created it, but you're right. Other people go inward and to themselves, and there's all these different expressions, but these are the childhood default mode network that's getting stored in that area. So when there's a trigger, that's what the default is to either make up that character, or to go inward, or to avoid, or to whatever their default is. Sometimes it's anger and taking up a big space. Sometimes it's ego, to defend against fear, or so what we would want to do in order to, I guess, regulate these areas is to gain from every triggered experience. So when you're feeling it in that area, or you feel that trigger and it's coming into reality or anything, you want to gain, you want to ground in, get back into that root chakra and start doing that healing work. Take off your shoes, ground in, or do some kind of squats or other grounding exercise. Get down and sit in Buddha position, cross your legs, meditate, do what you got to do. Sometimes this means that you're like actually jumping up and down or doing some of that other somatic work to ground in. There's all kinds of different things. Sometimes it's eating.
And just on grounding, I watched the video this morning, which was kind of cool. Just a little short. This dude that goes, he's got a little ohm meter, and he hooks one up to his finger, and he's standing in a pair of Crocs, and he does that, the hook up to the ground thing, and there's no registration. And then he steps out of the Crocs, puts his foot on the ground, and it registers. And then he's got a pair of Dutch wooden shoes, and he steps in the Dutch wooden shoes, and it goes not as high as when he's grounded, but they still ground. And he just talks about the aspect of grounding, but shows the actual energy flow. When you put your feet on the ground, you can actually hook up an ohm meter and see the energy flow. Yeah. And when you're wearing shoes with synthetic bottoms, which are great for making our feet not hurt, but they also unground us, and we spend a lot of time in those shoes.
Yeah. And that's a great metaphor too, if you want to walk in somebody's shoes, may it be your ancestors.
Yeah, the ones that were grounded.
Then we can remember. We'll remember more. It's like when we eat food from the ground too, real food from nature in its natural form. We start to remember, oh wow, there's something there. There's extra messages coming through.
Okay, so back to the chakra stuff.
You
were trying to show me some chakra stuff on how the energy comes in, what it does.
Yeah, so a lot of the energy when it comes to this trauma would be stuck in those first two chakras. And they also align with each of the elements. So when we start working through it, you can attach different emotions and elements to each one. For the root chakra, it would be earthing. And that's why you always want to come back to the foundation, whether your grounding technique may be, doing somatic work and it's like kicking or like qigong or kuna dance, or, it could be anything, but whatever it is for you. And that's what's great about the chakra system too, is that all the information is already out there. There's already going to be a whole bunch of different techniques for root chakra. Whatever you're into and already doing this is gonna just complement that. If it is essential oils, if it's nutrition, if it's yoga, this fits into all those categories, and we'll already have the chakra stuff.
If it's walking your dog barefoot along the beach.
If it's barefoot, yeah. I love that. Earthing with your dog. You do that every day to ground in. That is one of your practices.
Yes. Good for both me and my dog.
Yeah, and so that's like really good for the trauma and the release. And for reconnecting with who you are now, because you're not who you were then. You're the person who's grown and learned from all of that. But sometimes we want to hold on because we feel that need to protect that child because it didn't have something. But we can always give back to that child in other ways. And this is how we feed that child, is by working within this system. Like, there is no reason to experience dis-ease in the body when you could be at ease. So
that was funny.
Yeah. The next chakra up that's often associated with childhood trauma too, that stores a lot of our childhood memories up until our early 20s, is the sacral chakra. And this is also where sexual dysfunction comes from. This is, our creative center for women. This is like the cauldron, the bowl. And for a couple, that is a very powerful, creation machine. You can do a lot in that. You can create businesses with that. You can birth, creative projects. Also children, like, this is a really special spot, but it also oftentimes can be corrupted, and sometimes that is through childhood sexual trauma, and sometimes that's just to the perversion that is on television and in movies, and because of peer pressure and all that.
The programs, there's a lot of programs that are run, and then the kids pick up the programs. They don't know they're being programmed. I ran.
And that all gets stored here. So there's a lot of work collectively to do in this area for ourselves, those before us, and those coming.
Yes.
Because that is our creativity. And if we want to be the change we wish to see in the world, then we have to clear a lot of that stuff out. And it's also the storage house of our emotions. That is the water element, which is all, water my emotions. We got to go with the flow. This brings in a lot of like that yin yang teaching, riding that wave in the middle. It's about that octopus that when we were up in Sunshine Coast, there was an octopus that seemed like it was dead, but something told me, no, it's alive, and don't touch it because it's gonna stick to you. So I didn't, but I did, take the octopus out. But what it was doing was completely surrendering to the waves and just flowing in. And then there it was, the answer to get it into a tidal pool so that it could, go about its happy life. So, there's this alignment, synchronicity, and healing that is shared collectively in doing this work too. And so much to learn from nature. Like that thing, that surrendered. It seemed like it was dead and it could have been. And frogs do that too, eh? Like there are a lot of frogs that will just, they see danger coming and they just jump off of a cliff and then they turn into this like gooey little ball and just bounce and then they start over.
I usually turn into the gooey little ball right before I jump off the cliff. It's right before it's like, okay, gooey ball, jump up. Hope this one's not gonna hurt.
But it also brings to mind that butterfly teaching of, if when the caterpillar goes into the chrysalis, you don't want to break it open too early and put too much pressure on. You really want to start with where you're at and, take it easier way into these things, because if you put too much pressure on a chrysalis, it's going to be really gooey. And,
Don't break them open in the gooey stage. You want to see the butterflies.
Yeah, but you also don't want to leave it too long and stay in fear or
you'll be a crusty old moth.
Yeah. You don't want to be a perfectionist. It's not about perfect. Done is better than perfect every single time. And while I'm saying done is better than perfect every time, that is a teaching that I learned in nutrition school from Joshua, who's like the main guy behind the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And he also taught on this in another way. He called it the law of geographic proximity, in order to understand where body keeps the trauma so you can adjust it with nutrition. Another one of my mentors, Dr. Dan Engel, in the psychedelic integration space, taught the 7 stages of happiness, which also aligns with the 7 main chakras. But in today's world, in our current reality, we're actually branching into the 8th chakra. And there are many chakras, many meridians, many energy points in our body, in animals, on the planet's energy center. But there's
let's talk about 8. You just mentioned 8 for humans. What are they?
That is the aura. So number 8 is the aura. So we have our elemental chakras. Yeah, we have our elemental chakras, which are earth is the root chakra. Then we have water, and that is our sacral. And this is oftentimes where childhood trauma is in those two. Once we can break through, we get into the solar plexus, which is fire, solar. And this is also where our willpower house is, where confidence comes from. It's our core of everything. This is where our strength comes from. Then we have our heart, which is the air element. And then we have ether, which is our throat. We have ether again for our third eye. We have our crown, that's into the divine. And then we have our aura field, which is the 8th. And we can start moving the energy up and down through the duration, but it's very important to always come back to your foundation, specifically for those of you experiencing childhood trauma or complex PTSD, which means it's complex because it's traumas happening over and over and over again.
So I'm just kind of looking at it as a guy that had looked at chakras, understood a little bit about frequency and where they related, but hadn't gone deep into it in an aspect of looking at it as zones of healing. because that's kind of what you're putting into perspective. I'm looking at
Yeah.
the zone of healing, and then it's like, okay, how did it relate to the TCM aspect of the healing that was needed in there, and the Ayurvedic, and the research that I've done in the Western medicine to pull it together, all the stuff that my buddy Cease and I have gone through. I'm seeing that you're giving me.
It's where it all brings it together.
Yes, everybody else has already put it all together, so why should I try to reinvent a wheel and try and keep it all
You just
housed in my
categorize it.
head, instead of just going, oh, this is this chakra area and this is what it is. It gives me a plane of existence to put my data.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Very simply put, it's a doctrine in itself, and it fits with so many modalities have this. In hormones, you have it with the endocrine system. In our body, each chakra actually holds different organs. So this is a doctrine in itself, but it also works with other doctrines, like the doctrine signature with food, like Ayurveda, like traditional Chinese medicine, like Reiki, like essential oil gurus, and it works with affirmations. It works in so many levels. Planes of happiness, like Dr. Dan.
I don't know Dr. Dan. That's
One day.
That's one I'm not familiar with. I'm familiar with a lot of talking heads. It's about a lot of really valuable information, but that one eludes me at this moment. I may be familiar, but it wasn't.
He kind of stays in the background, but he has his hands in a lot of things. But he kind of does do his own. He follows his heart. He's trying to tap into that Christ consciousness. He's got a lot of connections. But he is more of the quiet one.
It's
he lets other
interesting
people do the talking.
If you were science and come from a science end and come walking into this from a science end, you start to learn that there's a lot of spirit involved.
Yes.
And as you heal, you recover more of the spirit. In coming in from a science end, it's easy to go, oh, that fucking spirit hoodoo voodoo bullshit. Yeah. But honestly, if you start to find your healing, you find that the words all correspond, and the hoodoo voodoo is what is your definition that you've picked up of certain words. Because the definitions can all be modified.
Yeah, and as you grow and change.
Yes. And for me, a lot of them have had to be modified because in a lot of my world, that would be just that hoodoo voodoo bullshit. And which is one of the reasons I focus a lot of my mind on finding the science to back stuff. So that now that you've opened this up and pointed it out, nobody sat with me, and I've had lots of people talk to me about it, and lots of people refer stuff, but nobody's actually kind of sat and pointed out and made the not so subtle move of, you need to know this, because that's what happened. That was you. I don't know whether that was subtle or not, but to me it couldn't have been, because I heard it.
It's because you're on this kick right now of like organizing and like getting things in order. So it was just like a tool. It's like, this is at the right time, and here's its value and importance. And with your question coming up about, what do we do? How do we help share this information on childhood trauma? Well, first step is to understand it. And the best way to do that is to categorize it, have the problem and the solution. The best way to do that is to understand the duality. And you can do that with this structure. That was where my mind went.
And have each step.
Yep. Because you always have to come back to the foundation, and energy's always flowing. And it gets stuck.
I push foundation a lot, but I, of course, construction background. I go to the housing. What do you've got to build your forms. You've got to dig. You got to dig the holes, get the land level, put in the forms. Well, once you put in the forms, you can't just pour in the concrete. You got to have rebar, and you got to have different strengths of rebar for different things. So what is your rebar as you're picking up? So for me, when I was making my microdoses, it was like, okay, what's the forms? Well, I need something that can allow the brain to access its neuroplasticity, and I need something to compress the amygdala. Well, then you step into psychedelics. So which psychedelic do I want to work with in there? Well, I'm kind of a natural plant guy. I've been familiar with mushrooms. A lot of the data was on mushrooms, so I brought them in. Okay, so I've leveled my land. I've gone, okay, this is my issue, and I've got my land leveled, and I'm going to start building the forms. Okay, so I'm going to use the psilocybin as my forms. Now what's going to be the rebar? Well, that was my adaptogens and nootropics.
Yeah.
Some of them are heavier than the others. Where do I need them heavy? Well, I need them heavy in the ability to keep my emotional release down. I need them heavy in the ability to hold cognizant function and stay on track. And I needed other little things that could be subtle in the essence of keeping the energy where I needed it to be. L-theanine, the magnesium L-threonate, things like that. So I built it on the house structure. Okay, now what are we going to do for concrete? We just going to slap in fucking McDonald's shakes and French fries, or are we going to start with the foundations of what is needed?
Yeah.
That's my buddy Cease is that the greens, the ultimate greens, the power berry. It's the sea veg that for me that was my concrete. I started in there. I started throwing that in. I threw in my 7 mushroom blend with the adaptogens. It's like, okay, this is I'm going to build a fucking strong concrete here.
Yeah. Hempcrete, where it turns to rock over time.
Yes. Which has actually been introduced in because I'm utilizing the cannabis both for ingesting and for the brain aspect of the smoking, but the ingesting to activate the CB receptors so that my walls will be solid when I build the walls. And I'm slowly building the walls, which is why it's nice to learn about the chakra system, which is building up because the walls are building up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. Okay. So now
And
I need to just twist how I relate it.
Yeah. How we were talking before about our breath and our life force energy, right? That is the energy that's going. When you're looking at air from up above, it is like looking at the ocean. It is a kind of flow, and it's our breath that allows in a lot of that energy, including the energy of our ancestors from times before. It also allows us to connect with those that are here right now that are also breathing in the same air, and we get to choose through intention what energy we're bringing into our body. And when our chakras are in alignment, we can have the full conversations and understanding and also the release of information, like where we're able to filter it out, all of that in alignment in the spiritual world and here in our physical plane, in our relationships, which also get to grow and change and evolve through this process.
I'm going to
including our
expand on a
relationship
bit of
with
that
ourselves.
because you gave me the magic words. I've done a lot of study of breath. I've done a lot of study of different breathing techniques, the flow of air, the medicine, and all of them. Every one of them, since I've been on this path of the plant and frog and toad medicine, every one of them kept saying breathe, 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 breath, breath, breath. Every one of them kept just saying breathe, breathe. And I would try different breathing techniques because I've learned shitloads of breathing techniques, and I would be breathing. The eye was the first one that it said, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm breathing because I'm going through all the breathing techniques that I've learned." And it was like, "You need air, breathe." And I was like, "How should I breathe?" And then I went, and it wasn't about bringing it through my nose at that moment. It was that in that moment, my body required air so that the air could get into my blood, get to my brain, and my brain could get to where it needed to be because I was shorting it of oxygen. And the breathing techniques weren't giving it what it needed. It just needed air. Now, since that one, again, I've gone through other breathing techniques and I've studied more because every medicine experience would bring breathing. So my
Life
buddy
force.
Rusty,
It wants you to stay alive because you have work here to do.
But there's more because I kept going. There's more to breathing. It's not just about the airflow. We breathe in the air. We can bring it in. We can be conscious of bringing it in. We bring the oxygen in. We give it to our heart. We empower our heart. We put it down. Okay, send it down to our toes. There's so many meditations. Bring the air and breathe it around. What wasn't said, and it was in my talking to you about my buddy Rusty passing away. And, one of them comments about, well, at least his energy is there, and he is all that is. He's in with the all that is, and can help in many places now.
Yeah.
And you said, yes, and he's here. You can breathe him. His energy is here, and you can consciously breathe his energy in. You can consciously breathe his love in. And I
Scientifically, through photons, you guys can look into this stuff. There is, backing to this, and you can consciously bring in that energy from people that are recently passed away, that you're closest to, because you know more about them, so you're going to get more of the energy. It's going to be an allowance. When it's somebody from our past, or even a deity or anything.
Anybody in our history line.
Yeah, our
anybody
DNA.
in our history line that had love for us, the energy transmutes, it doesn't go away. And love is the most powerful energy. If that love was there, that love is there. And if we have the ability to breathe that love in, and all we have to do is be conscious that we can run that program, so that I can go, thank you, Rusty, for giving me the love and the positive energy to continue in helping those that I try to help in the pathway of healing. Thank you for letting me breathe in that essence of your love and the positive energy, strength, and fight that you had and that you showed me and those that loved you. Thank you for allowing me to breathe that energy in and get it into my blood and let it go to my heart and empower my heart with your love and energy. And not only do I have the ability to say thank you to Rusty, I have everyone, my mother, my father, my grandparents, everyone in my lineage, everyone in my DNA. From the beginning of time, I have that stream of love that I can now access and breathe in. We breathe out CO2. The trees convert the CO2 to oxygen. The oxygen is a vehicle for energy. It is energy itself. And therefore it can transport the energy all around us. And when we die, our energy becomes part of all the energy. And we can choose to be grateful and breathe in that love and that power of the love from all of those that we've held. Every pet I ever owned that loved me and I loved, that love is there. And I can access that, and I can breathe that in, and I can use it to empower my heart, my blood, my body, my mind, and my soul. It's just there to be utilized. And we're not taught that in a way that, hopefully I've explained it in the way that it came to me so that I could understand how fucking powerful that is, and how powerful breath is if you consciously understand that you can breathe in that energy and give thanks for receiving that energy. That is incredibly empowering and incredibly life-changing. And I have to say thank you to you, because you kind of just spouted it off in a little comment that grew into this big bomb.
Yeah. Well, you were allowing it. You were open to the information. A lot of people, might write some of the stuff off as hippy-dippy and not be interested. It's about what you're willing to do with that energy.
But there's science behind energy. I've studied the science. I'm a science geek. And it all the science fits into the concepts.
Yes.
And everything in this planet that we have is just a theory that hasn't been disproven. So prove my theory wrong and show me there's another truth. Anybody out there, please.
You would allow that too. I believe that you would allow it.
It would only bring growth. It would only let me know more.
And that's the difference between somebody who is actively growing and actively doing the work versus somebody who is, out for an agenda per se. Because there'd be a lot of focus on, that one thing being so stuck in. And if you're one of those people that wants to stay ignorant or naive to that and wants to, force, agenda that was thrust onto you, I encourage you, please just come back to your own heart center and, maybe ask your own ancestors for help, and then, see where that brings you.
Yes. And know that we create an avatar whether we think we are or know we are. Doesn't matter. We're still creating an avatar. Create the avatar you want to be.
Yeah,
Because
be
there's
the change you're
programs saying, hey,
be.
you're supposed to react this way. You're supposed to act this way. Fuck the supposed to's. Be who you are.
Yeah,
You're
don't
already
shit
that
on
person.
yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Anything else to discuss?
No, let's go for now. We'll share our sponsors and we'll talk another time.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Have a good day,
Bye.
people. Much love.
Much love.